I hope none of you are getting or feeling a little worn out and tired and there's a lot packed into a short period of time. But we live our lives that way, don't we? So I wanted to begin with just a little review of a couple points from yesterday when we were visiting the sitting place of Sutta Goswami, where he narrated Srimad Bhagavatam. We heard some very interesting description of an exchange between Sandilya Muni, or Sandilya Rishi, and Vajranabha, and Parikshit Maharaj. Now, many of you have been to Vrindavan. And if you haven't yet been to Vrindavan, may Krishna bless you when you go to Vrindavan and visit the Holy Dham. And when you go to Vrindavan, for sure one of the places that you'll visit is Govardhan Hill. And when you do parikrama around Govardhan Hill, towards the end there's Uddhava Kund. And there at Uddhava Kund we hear the pastime that we heard yesterday. During the pastime that we heard yesterday from Bhagavat Mahatmya, Sandilya was describing Uddhava's place of residence, and there are three places that were mentioned: Uddhava Kund, Kusum Sarovar, and Narada Kund. So when you're visiting Vrindavan and you go to Govardhan Parikrama, you come to Uddhava Kund, just on the other side of Govardhan Hill. So there's Uddhava Kund, there's the receding portion of Govardhan Hill. Just on the other side is Kusum Sarovar. And just on the other side of the Parikrama path is Narada Kund. It's all in the same area. Saki Sthala was also mentioned. It's in the same area. It's not. During one of the instructions and benedictions given by Sandilya Rishi to Vajranabha was that he should and he would be able to find the places of Krishna's pastimes. Because not so long had passed. He was just the great-grandson of Krishna. Krishna's pastimes were not so long ago. But they weren't known. And he found them and he established those places. And then long time passed. The places were lost. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he went to Vrindavan, the places were unknown. He identified where Radha Kund and Shama Kund were, and then he gave the instruction to Rupa Goswami to find the other places. And on the power of the instruction to do so, both Vajranabha and Rupa Goswami, and assisted by others, including Sanatana Goswami, they established, rediscovered. And there was scriptural authority for that rediscovering, and there was spiritual acumen that one who was empowered by a higher authority to do some service can access, and others cannot access. We heard about Valmiki Muni, and how Valmiki Muni was also feeling himself simply to be an object of mercy. The merciful were many in number. Narada Muni, Krishna's name, Ram's name, Ram himself, Radharani, Lord Brahma, instructing him, empowering him to do an incredible service and to experience and qualify him to do that incredible service. It's a very important spiritual principle. One point is there's scriptural authority behind proper narrations. There's the other kind also. But when there's proper narrations, then there's scriptural authority behind them. And the other point is there's empowerment that comes from receiving instructions, taking those instructions to heart. Just like when Brahma gave the instruction, before even Brahma gave the instruction, Narada, he had questions for Narada. Narada gave answers. That Valmiki Ramayana says he spent 1 muhurta, or 48 minutes, just bringing those messages within his heart, contemplating on the meaning and the purpose. And there's another, in the Padma Purana Bhagavad Mahatmya, there's a description, without the detail, beautiful narration, of someone who had become a ghost because of his offensiveness. But when his brother, Brahmana brother, for the benefit of his brother, he was narrating Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days. The ghost, at the end of the narration, manifested a spiritual form, came to his brother and fell at his feet and thanked him profusely, and went back to Godhead. Messengers of the spiritual world came, and as he was getting on the Vimana to go back to Godhead, his brother who was doing the narration said, "Wait a minute," to the agents of the Supreme Lord. "How come all the rest of us don't get this? There's so many persons that heard the same narration, and what's special about him? Why him? Why not the rest of us?" And one of the things said, because he heard so attentively, and although he was in a ghost body, subtle body, at night he was doing his worship in his ghost body. Doesn't say how he was worshiping in a ghost body. And he was contemplating the subjects that he had heard, bringing those subject matters into his heart. And he did that for 7 days. That was his qualification. So here we are, hearing Valmiki Ramayana, perhaps in a shortened version and perhaps a little feebly presented, but enormous potency is there in the name of the Supreme Lord, enormous potency is there in the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. And the opportunity, this is the backdrop message again, we have an opportunity to get closer to the goal of becoming attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereby, through that power, detached from all that is flickering and phantasmagorical. Phantasmagoria is a word that Prabhupada used often. Just will of the wisp, meaningless, nothingness, and we're so invested in it. And when we recognize it, we can't, it's stuck. We can't get rid of it. Like tar. How do you get rid of tar? Rub it with your other hand, and now you have tar in both hands. What do you do? It's a major question. It's a question of, is it addressed in Bhagavad Gita? The solution, same as we heard yesterday, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And there's a qualitative way of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Valmiki Ramayana, hearing the name, fame, glories, pastimes, loving exchanges of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And letting it go in through the quality of our hearing and the contemplation of what we're hearing and what is its meaning. Just like this little message of Sandilya Rishi's recommendation of how the feeling of Vajranabha could be pacified. His feeling of separation, his feeling of, I've been given some service and how do I do this service? Does anybody know that feeling? I know that feeling. How do you do? I'm given some service and, how do you do? It's like a mountain, it's too big. There's, within the instruction Prabhupada has taught us, there's capacity to carry it out, and a faithful person knows. And then there's this foundation of our hearing and chanting. For us, it's hearing and chanting. We're going to hear, part of the inspiration was what we're going to be hearing about Viswamitra Muni just now. And he was turning to austerities, and we turn to hearing and chanting, and we're really clear what the goal of the hearing and chanting is, and he was a little kind of off track on what the goal was. So what your intention is behind an activity, sankalpa is the Sanskrit term, very important. So I'm just, let us be really clear what our sankalpa, or our purpose of participating in this Ayodhya Yatra. And each of the things that we're hearing, it's the purpose of Valmiki. It's the purpose of our activities together. Deeper shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Feeling that connection with Him. Each of the messages are for them, and there's sub-messages and sub-messages of those sub-messages, and they're all very wonderful and important. And that's the sankalpa. Let's stay focused on what our goal, what the intention of our activities together are. So yesterday morning, we heard about Ram, Lakshman, and Viswamitra Muni, along with all the sages of Siddha ashram, making their way to Janaka's yajna and to see the bow of Lord Shiva. Those were the two explicit purposes. Many things happened on their way. When they reached the outskirts, the perimeter of the capital, King Janak, he came along with his ministers and his chief priest, who he looked to as his guru. And that is Shatananda. Shatananda, we heard, was the son of Gautama and Ahalya. So, hearing what Viswamitra Muni and Ram and Lakshman had just done, they visited the ashram of Gautama. By Ram's presence there, Ahalya was relieved of that curse of being invisible to anyone, everyone, and took her natural form again, and Gautama returned, and everything was made normal again. So he was very grateful. Certainly grateful to Ram, but specifically through the agency of Viswamitra Muni. Without him, would Ram have gone there? Of course, it was providential that it happened the way that it happened. Gautama had already said, when Rama, the son of Dasarath, comes here to the ashram, then this curse will be relieved. But until then, you stay here undergoing great austerities for your abominable sin. So it was foretold, but Viswamitra Muni was the instrument of that foretelling and brought Ram and Lakshman. And so he's very grateful. And Shatananda had spent time studying under Viswamitra Muni. So Viswamitra Muni was amongst Munis or Rishis superlative. And by age and by the fact that he was his student for some time, he had enormous respect. At the same time, Shatananda was the guru, like Vashishta was the guru for the kings of Ayodhya. Shatananda was the guru of King Janak. And King Janak is no small-timer. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. One of the great souls, great authorities of all time. And Shatananda is his guru. Highly qualified, highly elevated. And so now we're going to get some lessons. One of them is the etiquette when in the presence of someone who is, at least in terms of service, performing a similar service as you are performing. Greater emphasis is on that similarity of service as opposed to the seniority of Viswamitra Muni. How do you... What's the etiquette? How do you properly honor that person when that person, in the course of their life, has done some bad things? But they're a great person. So we're going to hear that etiquette. So it's this, we're not so refined. We're not so cultured. Some people are cultured, but most of us are far from it. So he's showing by example how to, on the one hand, and on the other hand, on the one hand, speak about the things that were done by Viswamitra Muni that were reprehensible, embarrassing, and not nice. And on the other hand, honoring him in a proper way. So how to speak about those? So when he told the truth about Viswamitra's past. He wants to glorify him. But it's not just eulogy and leave out the bad parts and tell only the good parts. He's telling the whole thing. But how to do that? It's an interesting lesson for us, because we have circumstances in life that are not obviously the same, but there's some similar elements, and what do you do? Well, he's very qualified, he knew what to do. In the presence of his disciples, that's Janaka and the ministers of Janaka, and Viswamitra Muni in the presence of Ram and Lakshman, his disciples, he's going to speak about, in greater detail, about Viswamitra Muni's glories. And it's appropriate because he's glorious. And it's appropriate that he glorifies him. So he begins by describing similar, in a shorter version of what we discussed yesterday, the lineage. The direct son of Lord Brahma, who became a king, was Kusha. And Kusha's son was Kushanabha. Kushanabha's son was Gadhi. And Gadhi's son was Viswamitra. Briefly mentioned. And so each of those names, of course, to us, these people in the West, just names. But within those who are become familiar with the lore of history, Vedic history, they're great personalities, powerful, elevated, very unique personalities. Brahma, Kusha, Kushanabha, Gadhi, Viswamitra. He became a king, Kshatriya, and he ruled for many thousands of years. Now this is previous Yuga. He was ruling during Satya Yuga, where people lived such duration, many thousands of years. Very virtuous, lived by righteousness, exalted, powerful. He ruled the world. Then, after some thousands of years passed, he decided to go on tour with his army and went here and there throughout his kingdom. And one of the places he went to visit was the hermitage of Vashishta. Now, Vashishta lived a long duration. He was the priest and guru of the Ikshvaku dynasty in Ayodhya. So he visited his ashram. Vashishta was very pleased to receive the king. And after receiving him with proper words and the standard etiquette, he offered the edibles that he had available, which were roots and fruits and berries and forest items. And the king was very happy to receive his hospitality and his graciousness and courtesy. Then Vashishta said, I would like to offer you and your whole army nicer accommodation, a big feast. Viswamitra Muni said, just your association is in itself satisfying. Give your blessings and let me depart with that, with your blessings. But Vashishta was insistent. And as many times as Viswamitra Muni tried to politely say no, Vashishta was insisting. And so he yielded to the insisting of Vashishta. And then Vashishta called his Kamadhenu, his wish-fulfilling cow. The wish-fulfilling cow's name was Sabala. Sabala, please provide sumptuous meal for all of Vishwamitra's army. And voila! By the mystic power of potency of Sabala, enormous quantities and varieties. The list goes on and on and on and on of things that were provided, and silver bowls and silver plates filled. And everyone ate sumptuously and were very satisfied. Now, Viswamitra Muni was a king, and he was accustomed to having everything that's opulent, because everything opulent goes to the king. So very humbly and very politely, he made an offer, a bartering offer, a Vaishya enterprise. He invited Vashishta to receive 100,000 cows in exchange for the one cow. It was polite. But Vashishta politely said that's not possible. His was relational, not entrepreneurial. He said, Sabala and I have been together for my lifetime. My lifetime is dedicated to performance of yajna for the benefit of the world. And all the paraphernalia I need every day for the performance of yajna, Sabala provides. She's inseparable from me. She's as dear to me as my life. It's not possible for me to part with Sabala. That didn't sit well with Viswamitra Muni. He was a Kshatriya and said, things that are excellent and opulent belong to the king. So it's not inappropriate for me to request that this be given to the king. And Viswamitra said, sorry, Charlie. I can't do that. Then Viswamitra said, very well, if my request is not sufficient, then by force. I'm the king. I'll use force, and with the strength of my arms, I'll take Sabala with me. And he approached Sabala, and with his powerful arms, which were powerful, he started dragging Sabala away. Vashishta said, it's perfectly appropriate for you as a king to use might to get what you want, and it's perfectly appropriate for me as a brahmana to not exercise strength, although a brahmana's strength surpasses that of a kshatriya, and I should practice forbearance and forgiveness, and so, Viswamitra, I forgive you. Sabala wasn't very okay with that. He said, why, in the presence of my master, this vicious person is doing a vicious act, and you're standing by, silent? What offense have I done? And Sabala broke away for a moment from Viswamitra, the king, at that stage, and came before Vashishta and said it again. What have I done to deserve your silence? He said, what can I do? I'm a brahmana. He's a king. He's ruler of the world. He's exercising his might and his power. And I'm a brahmana. I'm exercising my brahminical duty of being tolerant and forgiving. What should I do? Sabala said, here's what you can do. You just give the order. She could do it without the order. Just give the order. And I will produce unlimited armies and destroy Viswamitra and his whole entourage. So Vashishta said, stay. That was it. From the body of, just as this fantastic feast had been provided, armies, huge armies of this variety, that variety, the other variety, and they all went to attack Viswamitra Muni and his armies. And Viswamitra Muni and his armies were resisting the attack from Sabala. Vashishta upped the ante, and more armies, more soldiers, more fighters, and Sabala, a long list of this and that and the other, with these weapons, those weapons, and the 100 sons of Viswamitra, then king, they became enraged. And they sent weapons directly at Vashishta. No problem for Vashishta. He uttered a mantra that stopped the weapons and destroyed 99 of the 100 sons of Viswamitra and his army. Because now he's being directly attacked. It's not so. Viswamitra Muni was horrified. He was amazed at the power of Sabala. He's amazed at the power of Vashishta. And he's never been defeated. He's one of these Rajarsic persons. He'd never been defeated. Now he's been defeated, totally humiliated. So he had a change of mind of his occupation. Instead of being king, he now wanted to become powerful through austerity, as Vashishta had become powerful through austerity. He turned the kingdom over to his once remaining son and decided he would go to the forest and engage in austerities so that he could get revenge. He wanted to worship Lord Shiva so that Lord Shiva would then give him a boon, and the boon that he would ask from Lord Shiva was all the celestial weapons and all the celestial arts of warfare and all the secrets and all the mantras and the whole shebang. So he went to the Himalayas. For a long period of time, he underwent austerities. Lord Shiva came before him. What is it that you would like? Here's what I would like, as already mentioned. All the weapons, all the science of warfare, all the secrets of all the demigods, including yourself, whatever weapons you have and Brahma has and anybody has, I want all those weapons. Lord Shiva didn't say anything. He just disappeared, and by his own power he invested Viswamitra with the capacity to know all those things, which is what he wanted. He wanted all those things, so he then went marching back to the ashram of Vashishta and released those weapons. The first one mentioned is he released the Agni weapon. And if you remember from a little while ago, it was the Agni weapon that killed Sabahu. He released the Agni weapon. Vashishta had said, let's see what does the strength of your power, show your best. So he released the Agni weapon. Vashishta held his staff, and all the power of the Agni weapon went into the staff and it was neutralized. And so this one, that one, all the weapons, he released all the weapons, and they all went into the staff of Vashishta. And now Vashishta is empowered with all the power of these weapons within his body, and from his body flames came from every pore of his body like a human torch. And the heat, the intensity was so severe that the rishis and the demigods came to Vashishta and said, please withdraw this fire. You can burn the whole universe. So Vashishta gave up his anger. The fire was reduced, withdrawn. And he said to Viswamitra Muni, peacefully, you can leave now, but never act so foolishly ever again. Totally humiliated. He had to get revenge. And he also understood Brahminical power is greater than other kinds of power, even the power of the demigods. So he wanted now, instead of revenge, he wanted to compete. Because that's what he knew how to do. So now, instead of to the Himalayas, he went to the southern region, doesn't say where, and he was accompanied by his queen. He's still not yet a Brahmana, he's a Kshatriya. And in the course of 1,000 years of austerities somewhere in the southern region, 4 sons were born, because remember his one son had become the king of his kingdom. 4 more sons were born. And at the end of that 1,000 years, Brahma came with different devas and announced, you're acknowledged by us as a Rajarshi, a sage amongst kings. That wasn't good enough for Viswamitra. He wanted to become a Brahma Rishi, not a Raja Rishi. He wanted to become a Brahmana. He wanted to be equal to a competitor of, status-wise, Vashishta. Because he didn't want to be one-upped. He wanted to be on his platform, his level. As fate would have it, around the same time, there was a king in Ayodhya, in the Ikshvaku dynasty, whose name was Trishanku. Trishanku had some nice qualities. He was truthful, he was self-controlled, he was very charismatic, and he was extremely handsome. Too much handsome. So he developed this desire. I'd like to attain, I'm going to have to die and lose this handsome body. So I'd like to attain heaven in my self-same body. So he went to the priest of the Ayodhya kingdom, Vashishta. And Vashishta, and put his request before Vashishta, who said, not possible. That he couldn't hear it. He was obsessed like Viswamitra was obsessed with becoming a Brahmarshi. He wanted to go to heaven in his self-same body. So he went to the 100 sons of Vashishta who were engaged in austerities in the southern region. Note that's the same area where Viswamitra was. And he put the request. He told them the truth. Your father said no, so I'm coming to you and say, will you say yes? Will you help me? They said, you're a fool. How can the words of Vashishta, our father, and such an exalted personality, be transgressed? He said it's not possible. And it's not possible for us to transgress him. So to the 100 sons, he said, you said no, he said no, I'm going to have to find another priest. They flipped. They said, you're an abominable person. You should become a Chandala. And overnight, his body transformed to a Chandala's body. His skin became darkened, his clothes became tattered, the golden ornaments became iron ornaments, his features were no longer beautiful but disheveled. His ministers that had accompanied him in this whole affair, they were taken aback. We're not going to follow this person anymore. They left. He's abandoned. But he didn't give up his determination to attain heaven in his now not so pleasant looking body. He thought, there's only one opportunity for me. I'll go to Viswamitra Muni, who's was told he's somewhere here in the southern region, and he has become a competitor of Vashishta. Maybe he will help me. So he found Viswamitra Muni. he made his appeal and was bragging about his accomplishments. Born in the Ikshvaku line, I performed all my duties with righteousness, following the scriptures. I simply wanted to have a yajna, and my guru and his sons didn't approve. I have to accept this as destiny. Now I'm coming to you. You're my only shelter. Please help me. Now, one of the characteristics of Viswamitra Muni, a good characteristic, is both as a king and then eventually as a brahmana, he has compassion. He wants to give protection and shelter to those who come and take shelter of him. So he said to Sri Shanku, I'll help you. He specifically says, rest assured. He gave like an oath or a pledge or a promise. Attainment of heaven in the same physical form is a foregone conclusion. Now, a little comment is, Trishanku didn't recognize that there was any fault in him, like the fault of disrespecting his guru and the sons of his guru. He didn't see that part of his conduct and his demeanor. He's bragging about himself. I have done this and I have done that and I'm good. And in our line, our acharyas teach us that just the opposite. Even one may have attained something very wonderful and special and good follower, one feels otherwise. Our teachings and songs and writings are replete with that mood. That's the mood of a Vaishnava, and Trinabindu wasn't so Vaishnava-like. He was materialistic. And that eclipsed his higher quality. It's a good lesson. We need to follow the example of great souls. So, Viswamitra, not yet Muni, he agreed. I'll help you. So he sent his disciples in all directions to invite everyone qualified Brahmana to come and take part in the yajna. We're going to send Trinabindu to the heavenly planets. And the disciples came back with the report. Everyone has agreed to come, with the exception of Vashishta's 100 sons, and the sage whose name is Mahodaya. Mahodaya said no. And they said, we can repeat to you their words. When the performer is a warrior and the beneficiary a chandala, how could the gods and sages accept the offerings? How will the brahmanas and mahatmas go to heaven if they eat the food eaten by a chandala in a sacrifice patronized by Viswamitra? We're not coming. Viswamitra flew into a rage, and with the strength of his austerities, he cursed them both. Let the 100 sons of Vashishta for 1,000 lifetimes roam the earth as dog-eaters. Let all their spiritual strength be lost, their Brahma Tejas be lost, and they become dog-eaters for 100 lifetimes. And Mahodaya, although I was faultless, he vilified me, so he should become a nishada or a hunter and live off the bodies of dead animals. So he then turned to everyone else who heard him make these pronunciations and say, "Let the yajna begin." And they discussed amongst themselves, "Phew, this Viswamitra, he's got a hot temper. We don't agree with what he's doing, but we better not disagree either. We'll just go along and be a participant." So they did their service. And when it came to the part of the yajna where he was invoking the gods to come and take their portion of the offering, nobody came. Viswamitra was very embarrassed what to do. So he drew upon his tapa bala. Bala means strength and tapa means austerity. The strength of his austerities, and with the strength of his austerities, he invoked that Trinabindu in this very same body should rise to heaven without the devas coming to take their offerings. And he waved the ladle in the air, and the ladle went soaring into the sky, and Trinabindu went flying after him. And everyone was watching him rise higher, 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 heading towards the heavens. They were amazed. What a powerful person is Viswamitra. The impossible, uttered by Vishishta, has now become possible. When Trinabindu reached the heavenly region, Indra and the Devas said, "You can't enter here. You're an offender to your guru. You've been cursed by your guru and his sons. You have to go back." So Trinabindu then started falling and falling and falling and falling and falling, calling for Viswamitra, "Help!" And he just uttered, "Stop." So he stopped falling. He was head down, feet up, falling. Stopped midair. And Viswamitra then, by his power, created a constellation of stars, a fax copy, carbon copy or whatever, a copy of the heavenly planets. And said, "You stay there. You can stay in. I've created the second heavenly region. They will let you stay there, and you can stay in the one I created." The demigods said, "Viswamitra, what are you doing? You're not Brahma. You can't just create the universe." He said, "The word that I have uttered to this king, it can't go in vain. I can't break my promise. So my request to you is, please allow these planets to remain for as long as the universe that Brahma created remains, and let Trishanku stay there." So they said, "All right." Now, Viswamitra had, by those two things, cursing this one, that one, and this creation of this constellation, all his power, tapo bala, was gone. So what did he do? He started all over again. And when he started all over again, this time he went to Pushkar, which is currently in Rajasthan, and he, by the various waterways within Pushkar, he did his austerities for a long, long time. Meanwhile, back in Ayodhya, there was a king. So the long, long time that passed, if you look in your lineage of Dasarath, you'll find Trishanku listed there, then a whole bunch of other kings that come after him, and then the king that's being mentioned here is Ambarish, which is different than the Ambarish in the 9th canto. But it's the Ikshvaku king Ambarish, same name but different person. And he, Ambarish, of the Ikshvaku clan in Ayodhya was doing a Ashvamedha Yagya. Indra got nervous. He came in the disguise of a Rakshasa, stole the horse. And the ministers told him, you better get that horse back. Because if you don't, not only the yagya won't be successful, but you'll get a big reaction, and the whole kingdom will get a big reaction, so you got to find the horse. And if you can't find the horse, then you have to get a human substitute for the horse. And then we can continue with the yagya. With his army, he went searching. Ambarish went searching here, there, everywhere. Couldn't find the horse. Similar to what we heard about Sagra's 60,000 sons. Couldn't find the horse. So he came to the ashram of Brighu, and one of the descendants of Brighu was Richika. And Richika, we heard this previously, yesterday morning in fact, that Richika was married to Viswamitra's sister. Remember her name? Satyavati. But she has another name, Koshaki, because Kusha, and he's Kushaka, she's Koshaki. So they were married, Richika and Koshaki. And the king, Ambarish, requested, help, your sages, your qualified persons, I need help. There'll be ruination that will come to the whole Ayodhya kingdom unless I can continue with this Ashvamedha Yagya. And I've searched everywhere for the horse, and the ministers have told me if I can't find the horse, I have to have a human being who can then be sacrificed at the Ashvamedha Yagya. So you have 3 sons. Can I have one of your sons to sacrifice in the Yagya? I'll give you 100,000 cows in exchange for your son. These are brahmanas. So Richika said, well, I'm really attached to my elder son. And Satyavati said, I'm really attached to the younger son. And the middle son was hearing all this. My mother and father don't love me. But here's somebody that finds my life worthy and useful to them. So he volunteered. I'll be the human sacrifice. His name was Shunak Shepa. Shunak Shepa then went with Ambarish, who went to go to his yagya in Ayodhya. And as he was traveling, one of the places he passed through was the same place where Viswamitra was situated, in Pushkar. And then they took a lunch break. And when they had the lunch break, Sunakshepa was having second thoughts about the whole thing. I've given my word, but maybe there's a way I can fulfill my word without losing my life, which I can then use in some higher purpose of service. So we went to Viswamitra Muni and said, help. Now, this good quality of Viswamitra, when someone submits to him for help, he wants to help. So Viswamitra turned to his 100 sons and said, please sacrifice your life for the yagya, the Ashvamedha Yagya of the king, Ambarish. And because the life of sages are meant for service to others, here's some service. They were astonished that he was making this request of them, and they said, this is unfitting. How is it that you reject your own sons to protect someone else's son? We consider this almost as abominable as including dog's flesh in one's food. Now, Sunapeksha recognized that the person who he was dealing with was his uncle. And Uncle Viswamitra recognizes this is his nephew, it's his sister's son. But it's not just a family, it's a saintly, a sadhu's function. And what's the boundaries for that? Well, he didn't know boundaries. He wanted to help. He was asked for help. Now his sons insulted him. So he was shocked. And he cursed them, his sons. May you all become born on the earth for a full 1,000 years as dog eaters. Because that's what they had said. What you're suggesting is like that. So now Viswamitra turns to his nephew, Sunakshepa, and says, don't worry, I have a solution. You can keep your promise in the following way. You go with the king, Ambarish, back to Ayodhya, and when they do the sacrifice, and they've got you bound with kusha grass and the whole thing, here's 2 mantras. Listen carefully. I'm going to train you in 2 mantras. One is for worshipping of Lord Vamana, and the other is for worshipping Indra. And just at the very end, when the yajna is all over and they're going to throw you in the fire, say these 2 mantras. Everything will be all right. Having faith in Viswamitra, he went back and said, Ambarish, let's go, let's hurry up, let's get this over with. Ambarish was really happy. They did the yajna, and when it came the right time, he said the 2 mantras. And Indra, being pleased with the mantra, and his younger brother Vamana, Indra granted long life to Sunakshepa. Ambarish had the success of his yajna, and everything ended up happy. But there was a problem. There's always a problem. He now lost all his power. He gave all his power to help Trinabindu go to the heavenly planets, and he gave up all of his power to curse his sons and to help Sunakshepa get what he wanted. There's this explanation given that what happened with Sunakshepa afterwards. His name literally means the tail of a dog. Sunakshepa. Now, what mother and father are going to name their son? Dog's tail. He didn't feel welcomed by his mother and father, but there's a higher meaning that's described, and there's, in the heavenly region, there's a dog called Devasuna, and Devasuna's function is when people try to enter into the heavenly planets having read the Vedas without proper understanding of them and having received them from proper sources, he barks and they can't enter. So after he's now relieved from this pledge to Ambarish, he makes a decision. I'm not going to go back to mom and dad, they don't want me anyways. But let me use my life for a higher purpose. I turn to Vamana and Indra. Let me dedicate my life like my uncle, Viswamitra. And so he did that. His life took a different direction, and he underwent great austerities. He became a great personality to help the Sunakshepas of the world that didn't have an understanding of higher purposes of life, and they were attached to the temporary purposes of life. And he wrote literatures to guide such people and gave his association to such people, just as Viswamitra, his uncle, had done for him. Became a great personality. So it wasn't a waste. A little intense the way that it happened, but it wasn't a waste. And now, poor Viswamitra, he's got to go back and do austerities again. Because he just lost all his tapa bala. So we went back to the banks of the Pushkar for another 1,000 years. Lord Brahma came and said, now you're a Rajarshi. But he wanted to become a Brahmarshi, not a Rajarshi. So he went on doing more austerities. Meanwhile, Indra got nervous again. Oh, he's doing more austerities. Very complicated. If you want to become a Brahmarshi, it's really complicated. So, Indra sent a society girl, an Apsara, named Ramba. And she said, oh, I don't want to deal with Viswamitra. I'll turn into ashes. And he said, don't worry, I'll go with you. And Kamadev will come with me. The three of us will go and we'll do the program together. So they went to where Viswamitra was doing his austerities. And, excuse me, something happens before that. The something that happens before that was Menaka. The Prabhupada would often speak about, it's right in the Bhagavad Gita, hearing the tinkling ankle bells of Menaka. His meditation was interrupted, and so Menaka was very beautiful, and his lust erupted, and he left his austerities and his meditation and his practices and lived in the embrace of Menaka for 10 years. And then a little light went on. Whoops. This was a trick of Indra. And I've really wasted my strength and my austerities, my direction and purpose of life. He decided not to give a problem to Menaka. So very politely, he said, you can go back to the heavenly planets now. I'm going to resume where I left off. So now he left Pushkar, looking for a better place. Like, the problem is the place, right? You just need to go another place and then it'll be better. So he went to another place. He went back to the Himalayas again. On the shore of the Kaushiki River, which is his sister. Thousands of years. Brahma came. You're a Maharshi. No. If you are satisfied with my austerities, I want to become a Brahmarshi. And that will then indicate that I've conquered my mind and senses. And Brahma said, you haven't conquered your mind and senses. You have to do more austerities. He spent another 1,000 years. Difficult austerities that are described, similar to Hiranyakashipu's. And this is where Ramba comes. Oh, now Indra's nervous again. So he brings Ramba, and Indra takes the form of a cuckoo bird and sings very sweetly. Kamadev plays very melodious music to set the stage for enticement by Ramba. Ramba comes and does some dancing. Viswamitra is not going to make the same mistake again. He cursed Ramba to become a rock. until Vasishta would come and relieve her from the curse. Indra and Kamadev disappeared. And Viswamitra is lamenting, Brahma was right, I haven't conquered my mind and senses. I conquered lust. I, didn't fall for the Menaka program second time around with Ramba, but I became overcome with anger. I have to overcome anger. So I'm going to go back to my austerity program then for another however long it takes, and I'm going to maintain a vow of silence, Mona Vrata, no matter what. So he went back. This time he left the Himalayas again, back to the southern region. Another 1,000 years, motionless like a wooden post, and after 1,000 years, he was going to take some prasadam. He prepared his own meal, and as he was about to take his own meal, Indra, disguised as a Brahmana, came and requested the meal. He's taken Mona Vrata. You can't deny a Brahmana, because he's trying to become a Brahmana. So he gave the meal to the Brahmana. And it went on for another 1,000 years, however hungry he was. Now this time, not only not eating, he wasn't breathing. No air. 1,000 years. Like unimaginable, but there was those that knew how to do such things. And as he was doing those austerities, from his head came smoke. Now with Vasishta it was fire, but him it's a smokeless fire. This is smoke. And the smoke just became so intense, it was filling up the universe. And the demigods went to Brahma and said, give him whatever he wants. He's becoming so powerful. He could destroy the whole universe. Let him become in charge of the demigods if he wants, but give him what he wants. So Brahma came, he knew what he wanted. You're a Brahmarshi. And Vasishta said, if you accept that, then let the syllable Om and the Vedas of their own choosing come to me, and let Vasishta say that he accepts me as a Brahmana. Then I'll stop. So Vasishta came and said, you're a Brahmana? And whatever you desire, it will be fulfilled. So with that, the priest of Janaka tells the glories of Viswamitra Muni, and hearing his glories being cited in a proper way, because it didn't whitewash the bad things, but honored him in ways that he could be honored. He was very pleased, and then Viswamitra began praising King Janak. By then, it was the evening time. King Janak returned to his palace. Viswamitra, Ram and Lakshman stayed in their encampment outside the capital city with a plan to meet together the next morning, because they had their evening duties to do as Viswamitra as a Brahmana and Ram and Lakshman. And so with that, we'll go to Ayodhya and hear about Ram and Lakshman and Viswamitra Muni's entrance into Ayodhya as we go to Ayodhya. today. So I'd like to say it again. It's worth repeating again and again. There's an intention behind all of this. The details of Puranic history are very complex. And what's the value of hearing about all these shenanigans of Viswamitra? A proud king and insulting a brahmana and cursing people and this and that. It's part of how he was becoming gradually, thousands of years, pretty gradually, many thousands of years, to become qualified to get some mercy, to do some service is mercy. He came to Dasarath's palace, apparently for his self-interest, but actually it was Ram's interest. And that's what Vishishta said. He's so powerful, Viswamitra, he's created a whole constellation of planets. He doesn't need anybody's help, doesn't need your help, doesn't need any. He's come to give glory and honor to Ram. And Ram will be safe, don't worry. He's come for the benefit of Ram. So he had a mission. He didn't have perfect devotion at that stage. That came in the course of association with Ram. But he came perfected ever so gradually, although he followed, an indirect path. There's some lesson for us. We can't. We don't have this indirect method. We have the direct method. We're unqualified too, and we make mistakes too, and we have material desires too, and it all gets mixed up. But we're being given an opportunity through the association of a great soul, our founder Acharya, to hear the message of Shuddha Bhakti from the get-go, however unqualified we are. Now it's made simple for people that aren't so spiritually qualified. It's made very simple. But the end result is the same. So there's the indirect method and the direct method. Which would you rather have? The Viswamitra route or chant Hare Krishna and be happy, take prasadam? But the end result is the same result. So as we went to Naimisharanya, a holy place, we're going to go to Ayodhya, a holy place, and hear pastimes of the Supreme Lord in a holy place, because it's one of the things that Rupa Goswami has identified is most potent activities and all the possible things that are beneficial for us. And most prominent are these activities of hearing and chanting. This is our Bhagavad mark. So let us do this in a qualitative way as you have your bus ride on your way over to Ayodhya. You can take a little rest, but you can also discuss with others things that you've heard and understood and how to apply it. Bring the message inside and help you, each of us, to become more qualified in coming to the gift of Shuddha Bhakti that we heard yesterday is one of the principal messages of the whole Bhagavatam, the whole Vedas. By pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, regain our eternal relationship with Him. That's our mission, our mandate. And these activities are designed specifically to help us. We have to receive them, interact with them in the proper way. That's the facility we're being given. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the previous disciplic succession. So we'll continue this evening. We get a little break from our activities. See you in Ayodhya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. There are a few announcements. Today's breakfast prasadam is sponsored by Radha Duti Mataji. Let's acknowledge by saying Hari Bol thrice. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Now book distribution is going on, and devotees who are distributing the books kindly give the score every